Well, it's starting to look like that we've been overthinking this. See, when they announced that Robert Downey Jr. was playing Doctor Doom, we naturally assumed that he was playing Tony Stark from another universe. After all, this is the multiverse saga. But now it's really starting to look like there's mounting evidence that that is not the case. Downey is just playing a totally separate character here. So what does that mean? Welcome back, ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy, and today we are going to present the mounting evidence that Robert Downey Jr. is actually playing just Doctor Doom and not another version of Tony Stark. We're going to talk about what this means, and I got a theory that I think explains why they would make this bizarre casting choice. It's actually a pretty simple theory that we've never talked about on the channel before. I guess I should start off by pointing out that the Robert Downey Jr. as Doctor Doom announcement is the most controversial thing that has happened to our channel ever since Doug went to St. Louis. I'm legally not allowed to talk about that. I know I'm not. I have always hated the idea of Downey Doom because Doctor Doom is one of my favorite Marvel characters of all time, and I want to see him done right instead of just being a variant of Tony Stark. Colton Ogburn, however, the guy who's trapped in our TV but doesn't know it, so please don't tell him, has said that since this is the multiverse saga, he wants Doom to be a variant of Tony because the saga is all about where our choices lead us in life. Which is true, but if Doom is a variant and that's a version of Tony that's just from another universe, then I would rather have seen just the villain be evil Tony Stark and save Doctor Doom for a later movie. But the casting of Robert Downey Jr. does mean that Doctor Doom just happens to share a face with Tony Stark, which of course we saw in Deadpool and Wolverine when Deadpool thought that the Human Torch was Captain America.
Avengers! Flame on! Sorry, what now?
But I'll tell you guys, as weird as this is, it could be setting up the perfect twist for an Avengers Secret Wars and hopefully lead to the return of Tony Stark. Now, like I said, after Downey's casting was announced, we made assumptions. Like, when exactly did Tony break bad and start to become Doctor Doom? At one point in the timeline, did he veer off the path, or did the snap create Doctor Doom?
I still really like that theory.
Me too. So the question is, when did Tony Stark begin to overindulge his need for control and become Doctor Doom? We made a lot of theory videos, and we will keep making them because they're fun. But let's look at the other side of this. What if we're wrong and Doom and Tony are just two dudes who look alike? I'm starting to think that's the case. So let's look at the evidence. First, leaker Alex Perez, who's very reliable, said something interesting. Perez, over at the Cosmic Circus, claims to know the plot of Doomsday and the inner workings of what Marvel is planning. Somebody asked him if Tony Stark was tortured by Kang into believing he's Doom, which is a stupid theory by the way, and Perez responded, in the same way that Chris Evans can play two different characters in the MCU with the same face, so can Robert Downey Jr. play Victor Von Doom. And just like how now we have a main Johnny Storm with Joseph Quinn, I'm hearing we'll eventually have another Victor Von Doom. So if this is correct, it means that these are just two guys with the same face and that someday we could have another actor playing Victor Von Doom in the main MCU. So that's just a leak, but what about the creators of the movie? Well, the Russo brothers have been pretty coy about this. They prefer to tell us about Doomsday by releasing tone poems that are stories and not trailers. But they've never actually said out loud that Doctor Doom is Tony Stark. In fact, they've said the exact opposite. And when Kevin Feige pitched Downey and his wife Susan on him returning to the MCU, he specifically told them, let's get Doctor Doom right.
Are you okay?
I got a new job.
Hey, congrats!
Yeah, but then I went out to celebrate, overslept, and lost the job.
Dude, that sucks. I 100% feel you. I cannot drink like I used to. Even a couple of beers will leave me on my ass the next day. But I don't want to sacrifice my entire day just because I wanted to have fun the night before. But hey, I went out last night and I feel great because I used a ZBiotic pre-alcohol. ZBiotic is one of my all-time favorite sponsors that we work with. Even when we aren't working with them, I have a regular subscription for these every month. This is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic, and it was invented by PhD scientists to tackle our rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in your gut. It's a buildup of this byproduct and not dehydration that's to blame for your rough days after drinking. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. And also remember to make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night, drink responsibly, and then you'll feel your best tomorrow. Let me give you a recent example. I observed dry January, and so I didn't drink all through the month. So on February 1st, I overdid it a little bit, but it was okay because I had a ZBiotic and I was ready for work the next day. So I can personally recommend ZBiotics pre-alcohol. Go to zbiotics.com/ScreenCrush right now to get 15% off your first order when you use the code ScreenCrush at checkout. Plus, it's backed by a 100% money-back guarantee, so there's no risk. Subscriptions are also available if you want maximum consistency. Now, back to what I was saying. See, the Russo brothers thought that they were done with the MCU. They initially turned down Marvel's offer to come back, but in an interview with The Omelet, the Russos confirmed that it was Kevin Feige's idea to cast Downey as Doom, and they initially said they did not see a way into telling the story. But then, writer Stephen McFeely pitched them on an idea.
And then one day, Steve McFeely, who's one of our key collaborators, said, I have an idea. And he called us and pitched, and we went, that's the story.
So, look, read between the lines here. If the pitch was simply, Dr. Doom is an evil version of Tony Stark, then that's an easy pitch. McFeely, however, apparently gave them something different, something that made them sign away years of their lives to make this project. And then, in July 2024, they introduced Robert Downey Jr. as Dr. Doom. And Joe Russo twice specifically refers to this character as Victor Von Doom.
We give you the one person who could play Victor Von Doom.
And in that interview with The Omelet, they also talk about their love for villains and how villains have to believe that they are the heroes of the story. And they specifically say that Robert Downey Jr. is the guy to play this part.
And when you have an actor like Robert Downey, you have to create a well-shaped, three-dimensional character for the audience.
And of course, at the announcement, Downey offered the biggest clue about why he was cast.
New mask, same task.
And this is naturally where we started to craft theories. Tony Stark and Dr. Doom are, after all, similar people. They're both egotistical, powerful men who want to make the world into a better place through technological control.
I see a suit of armor around the world.
But the key difference is that even in the comics, Tony Stark never wants to install himself as the absolute ruler over something. He did become director of S.H.I.E.L.D., but not to glorify his own ego. On the other hand, Dr. Doom has always believed that he should be the rightful ruler of the world. See, Doom's dream is a utopia that he rules. Tony's dream is a utopia that allows him to retire.
Isn't that the why we fight? So we can end the fight, so we get to go home?
So like Downey said, the task is the same. Achieve a utopia through technological control. But the characters, or the mask, are totally different. Also, in an interview with The Times, the Russo brothers did address why Dr. Doom looks like Tony Stark, but they said, we can't explain that as it's part of the story, but there's nobody else in the world who could play this character the way he's about to. Now look, we took this a little too literally. The only person who could play this role is the same guy who played Tony Stark, because they're literally the same guy. And like, we all of us in the sphere hopped on this same quote. We assumed that it meant that the reason only Downey could play the role was because he is a variant of Tony Stark. Or what if this really is just a comment about Downey's skills as an actor? Like, Tony Stark appeared in 11 movies in the MCU, and all of those films gave us a full character arc. He starts off as a selfish playboy, then becomes a guilt-ridden control freak, and finally learns to become a father figure and then a father. Downey was able to do the impossible. He turned a billionaire playboy into a likable man who we felt sorry for. I mean, think about it. Tony Stark tries to beat up Captain America, and we never stopped rooting for the guy. And this should be how we approach Dr. Doom. Dr. Doom is a villain who is not cruel for the sake of cruelty. He believes evil actions are a means to an end. Maybe Robert Downey Jr. can make Victor Von Doom, the greatest Marvel villain of all time, into a sympathetic man. And maybe only Robert Downey Jr. could do that. Like, I cannot find a single interview where the Russo brothers say simply that he is playing a Tony Stark variant. They repeat over and over that he is playing Dr. Victor Von Doom. Now, I should reiterate that Dr. Doom is a completely different character from Tony Stark.
Keep up.
You don't get to be confused.
Yes, there are similarities, but they are on totally opposite trajectories as human beings. Victor Von Doom was born into a tribe of poor Romani travelers. Tony Stark was born into wealth and privilege. Doom's people were persecuted everywhere they went, while Tony Stark was afforded every privilege. Doom loved his mother, who was taken from him at an early age. So then Doom began his lifelong quest to gather more power to himself to save his mom. While Tony was cold and distant to his father, and he lost his parents when he was an adult, and then buried his grief by partying for years. See, Doom's origin moment is when his hubris causes an accident that scars his face, so he doubles down on his desire for control. Tony's origin moment is when he's shown the consequences of his actions and then feels remorse. I don't think that if these two people were born into each other's lives, they would make the exact same choices. Tony consistently tries to improve himself, while Doom firmly believes that he cannot improve. He is already perfect. Saying that Dr. Doom and Tony Stark are basically the same character character, it's like when people said that Doctor Strange had an origin that was too similar to Tony Stark's. Like, Tony Stark was the cause of his own misfortune. He's the cause of his own origin, while Doctor Strange had a freak accident that frankly was the will of the universe. Not every intelligent asshole is the same person. These are different people. So, what does all of this mean for the MCU and for Avengers, Doomsday, and Secret Wars? On the one hand, it's kind of a wasted opportunity for Doom to not be a variant. After all, this is the multiverse saga, and it would be extremely cool for an evil Tony Stark to be the main villain. But on the other hand, if they turn Doctor Doom into a variant of Tony Stark, then you're killing the golden goose that is Victor Von Doom. Doom, on his own, could provide easy a dozen movies worth of stories. But if Marvel were to say, oh no, Victor Von Doom is just an evil version of Tony Stark, then you are limiting the scale of his story by tying the character to Tony Stark. The fact is, he's probably just Victor Von Doom from the universe of the Fantastic Four. See, on the Phase Hero podcast, FF director Matt Shackman confirmed that this is in fact Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom in the end credits.
So was that Downey in the suit? Or I guess you weren't there, maybe?
Yes. Yes.
Now, we did assume that this could be a version of Doctor Doom from another universe who traveled to the Fantastic Four's reality. But doesn't it just make more sense that Doom would just already exist in this world? Like, he's a scientist, he has this castle in Latveria, he detects incursions in the multiverse, and then he seeks out this little cosmic god to help him fix the problem. Doom being from their universe also fixes a few huge problems I've had with these films. One, Doctor Doom and Reed Richards are arch enemies. They are two sides of the same coin. See, Reed Richards is actually smarter than Tony Stark, and the two of them are very different. Reed is actually a lot more like Doctor Doom. They both have enormous amounts of confidence in themselves, and Reed and Doom are actively not trying to become better human beings, unlike Tony Stark, who's always trying to make up for his past sins. Reed is a person who's just always trying to improve the world and not himself. Leaker Daniel RPK, who's a very reliable source, said way back in August 2024 that Doom is from the same universe as the Fantastic Four. And this was also set up in the movie. We see a Latvian flag at the Future Foundation with no one in attendance. See, in the comics, Doom rules over this nation, and this scene implies that he refused to join the Fantastic Four's little world peace club. This would also explain why he appears at the end of their film. He's already in their reality. So this implies that in this universe, there is a comic book accurate version of Doctor Doom. Doom and Reed knew each other in college. That's where Doom built a machine to rescue his mother's soul in another dimension. But that origin can be tweaked to suit this movie. Maybe now Doctor Doom is just trying to reach out to the multiverse, and when he conducted his experiment, he saw incursions. He saw the inevitable destruction of their universe. The day of that accident, when Victor's face was scarred, was the day when he set on his life's work to fix the multiverse and then to rule it as a god. So when Reed Richards, who he blames for his accident, builds a united world government, Doom doesn't bother to join because his problems are bigger than just one planet. He needs to save the multiverse. Now, because Reed Richards has a history with Doctor Doom, he knows how dangerous this guy is. So after he shows up in their penthouse and jets away, they follow him in their own multiversal ship to warn everybody that this guy, Doctor Doom, is the worst villain they have ever faced. Reed can be the harbinger of Doom like Bruce was in Infinity War.
Thanos is coming. He's coming.
And if Doom is from the Fantastic Four's universe, it means we're not going to sacrifice their adversarial relationship from the comics. We're just going to build on that. So now Reed can serve an important role in the film. He can explain to the other heroes and the audience why Doctor Doom is dangerous and why they should be afraid. But still, the real question is, why is Robert Downey Jr. playing Doom? What narrative purpose does it provide for Doctor Doom to have the same face as Tony Stark? Well, let's dive deep into some theories before I get to the big explanation that I think probably ties all this together. And that's where I want to quote a friend of the channel, John Campia, who also claims to know the plot of Doomsday. When a user asked if they explained why Doom has Downey's face in the movie, he replied,
"They do not, nor should they, and that answer will come in Secret Wars."
So that seems to heavily imply that Doom does not take his mask off in Avengers Doomsday, and this makes sense. Doom's face is horribly scarred, and he is such a vain man that he won't allow anybody to see his true visage. And this is why, when Doom obtains godlike powers in the original Secret Wars, the first thing he did was to fix his face. But this is also a sign that he never achieved true godhood because he still concerns himself with his earthly appearance. So, at the end of Doomsday, or at the start of Secret Wars, Doom Doom will reveal his true face and he will look like Robert Downey Jr. And this would also explain the Doom reveal from Comic-Con. Downey took the stage with multiple Dooms, and there are rumors that the movie will feature many Dr. Doom variants as well, but then Downey Doom steps forward and unveils that he is the one true Dr. Doom.
Well, yeah, but why's Doom got Tony's face?
Well, back to that Alex Perez comment, they established in Deadpool and Wolverine that different characters can have the same face from different universes. If the heroes from the 616 universe see Dr. Doom's face, they're going to be as confused as the audience. Like, wait, hold on, isn't that Tony Stark? And they're going to automatically think that he is Tony Stark or a variant, and that he was somehow corrupted. Doom can even use this to gain their sympathy. Maybe he doesn't even look like this, and he uses his godlike abilities to give himself Tony Stark's face just to earn their trust. Like in the 2015 Secret Wars comic, Dr. Doom rules a new planet called Battle World as God Emperor Doom. But to do this, he erases everybody's memories, so the heroes are his blind subjects. Maybe having a Doom with Tony's face is a variation of that idea. They look at Doom and see the greatest hero they can imagine, so they see Tony Stark. Hell, this could even be a spell, like a glamour. After all, Doom is second in line to be the Sorcerer Supreme. But look, I think when we come up with these theories, it's best to keep it simple. The simplest theory is always going to be the right one because, frankly, the audience needs to understand. No offense to Colton, but the idea that Tony Stark was born in Latveria and adopted is a lot of fun, but that's a lot for them to explain in the film. So here's where I think this leads. I think this is the simplest explanation. Robert Downey Jr. is not just returning as Dr. Doom, he's also returning as Tony Stark. And the reason why he had to play the villain is because the only person who can truly defeat Doom is Tony Stark. Robert Downey Jr. is going to be playing against himself. It is the kind of story that could only be told in the multiverse saga.
But he died. We all saw it.
Well, but hang on. See, for one thing, you can always bring in a variant of Tony Stark. Like, we saw lots of them in the show What If. There's also some precedent for this. Like, remember, originally, Kevin Feige told Hugh Jackman that he should not return as Wolverine because he had such a perfect ending. But then they brought him back as a variant in the movie Deadpool and Wolverine. So the same thing could be true for Tony Stark. Imagine, for instance, like a universe where Tony lost everybody he loved, where the snap backfired, and that Tony Stark now has to go up against Dr. Doom. He would be a jaded failure who would get redemption against the Actually, that is the actual plot of Deadpool and Wolverine. But you take my meaning here, right? But they also could resurrect the Tony Stark because there's a giant loophole in this story, the Soul Stone. When Thanos snapped, he saw the spirit of Gamora, who was sacrificed to get the stone.
Did you do it?
Yes.
What did it cost?
Everything.
And in Endgame, there was originally a scene with Tony's daughter as a grown woman where she tells her dad that he can move on. In both cases, the soul of the Snapper is seen in Soul World.
The 70s funk TV show.
Nope, that's Soul Train. Soul World is a pocket dimension inside the Soul Stone that is a kind of blissful paradise. When Adam Warlock sacrificed his life in the comics, his spirit went into Soul World. He only came back to life in order to stop Thanos after he got the Infinity Gauntlet. So, in the MCU, when Tony Stark snapped, his spirit could still be in that blissful paradise of Soul World. And as for how they get him out of there, I don't know, Doctor Strange, Adam Warlock, Wong, Shuri, Ned Leeds, somebody can get him out, doesn't matter. And then, Tony and Steve will be reunited and they can see the repercussions of their actions. Tony created time travel, he caused the multiverse to branch, and Steve created a branch in time by staying in the past. And those decisions could be what have caused the multiversal crisis. And maybe this is all also too complicated. Maybe they just cast Downey because he's perfect for the role. Honestly, I like all of these ideas a lot better than Doom being a variant of Tony Stark. As I have said on this channel many times, everything in Marvel should not revolve around Tony Stark. There are a legion of great Doctor Doom comics they can adapt for movies, and there are just as many great Iron Man stories. I want to see a Marvel Cinematic Universe where they can keep telling these stories with different actors, new directors, and new voices, and new styles, and new genres. Take what works in the comics and bring that to the screen instead of tying everything back to the original Iron Man movie that came out 20 years ago. But what do you guys think? Should Doctor Doom be a variant, or should Tony Stark have turned evil at some point? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, or you can at me on Twitter, Blue Sky Threads, or subscribe to me on Substack, or find me on our free-to-join Discord server. And if it's your first time here, welcome to the channel. Please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.